All right, so if you watched the latest episode of Outlander, I would say the main takeaway is this. If someone asks you, "Do you trust me?" and then leads you to a room and starts closing curtains and locking doors, you may want to rethink your acquaintance. Let's go. Hey guys, it's Marsha and welcome to Really Seriously For Real. And welcome to the latest breakdown of the latest episode, Between Two Fires. But before we get too deep into things, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and then click the like button if you like these types of videos and if you want to see more of them. All right, so let's first start with the Regulators. The episode actually starts with the Regulators going through a town, just sacking it, setting things on fire. They ended up dragging out two of the officials and tar and feathering them. To say the least, it was an intense scene. And then right in the thick of everything is our friend Murtaugh. So yes, he is there, and that was definitely something I was like, oh, okay. So he's in the thick of all this, and he's laying down the law through all this chaos. This ends up sliding on in to the intro, which I thought was a really nice contrast because you have all this chaos and the noise of this first scene, and then it slides into that really, it's like a warm blanket. I have to admit, I wasn't like a huge fan of it when they first released it. Just to show you what the new intro was, I was like, yeah, okay, well, whatever. I'm a brat. It's hard for me to accept change. So I was always about season one's original opener. But I have to say that this is my second favorite opener. When you bring things into context and you see how it plays out through the first episode and through the second episode, and this one especially, because like I said, it was just a perfect contrast. So let's now talk about Jamie and Lt Knox. All right. So Lt Knox, he's the dude that Governor Tryon dropped off with, his group of men in the last episode. And it's basically to push Jamie to get on the ball in finding Murtaugh. They're riding amongst the countryside and they're chatting and they're getting to know each other and getting to know the type of person that they are. And so it's, I don't know, at least for me, it kind of lulled me into a sense of calm almost, because I thought that Lt Knox, I thought that he may have some sympathy to the Regulators, and that's definitely how it seemed to come across. Obviously, he's a company man. He's going to do his duty, but at the same time, it seemed as though he understood at least what the Regulators were fighting for. But then this other guy, he rides up and informs them of the trouble in the town from the night before, and that they have captured 3 of the Regulators. All right, so they charge ahead, and when they get to this town, they see Mr. Fanning, and so Jamie recognized him as a friend of Governor Tryon. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think we ran into him or learned of him in last season's episode, Wilmington, if I'm not mistaken. The poor guy, he was just walking around the town in just like a fog. And so he sees Jamie and he's just kind of walking around like, finally a friendly face, or someone that I know. Oh, I felt bad for him. He was stunned. But, he takes him over to where they're holding the Regulators. They bring out the men. And of course, Jamie, he's really hoping that it's not Murtaugh. And it's not. But 2 of the men we do recognize from last season. And they recognize Jamie, of course, but no one's saying anything. Everyone's kind of giving the eye like, I see you, I know you, hey, what are you doing with this guy? A lot of dialogue, a lot of unspoken dialogue, I should say. So unfortunately, one of the guys, he had a lot of lip. And Lt Knox, he clearly is the type who can be very easily inflamed. So yeah, he ends up killing the guy. It was just like, whoa, how did we go to 0 to 60? And I'm like, all right, so all this build up on the ride here, I guess I was wrong about him. Jamie kind of pins him to the wall, like, what have you done? Fanning comes in, like, what have you done? And then Jamie ends up covering for him and implies that the other guy may have tried something, and so he was trying to defend himself. So now the other regulator, he's looking at Jamie like, what? But he still doesn't say anything. He doesn't give away Jamie's identity or, how he fits into this equation. So it was just, it was a tense moment because, it's like one of those things. Walking between these two fires, drawing that line in the sand and just kind of knowing what's, trying to navigate both sides of the wall. It was frustrating. It was frustrating for Jamie. Hell, for everybody. Now they have to deal with that. And so then Jamie, he's talking to Lt Knox like, listen, you're going to have to make amends. Because Knox, he was devastated by his actions just as a soldier. But then very quickly he was able to legitimize his actions by saying, oh, well, I gave him a soldier's death. It's more than what he deserves. And it's like, okay, clearly this conversation is just getting away from us. Later that night, Jamie, he sneaks into the jail and he sets free the other two guys. And, they're giving him a lot of mouth. They're just like, oh, what are you doing with him? Telling Jamie, what are you doing with this lieutenant? What side are you on? How can we trust you? And Jamie's like, listen, I'm doing the best that I can. I can't do everything. It was a frustrating scene because you wish that everyone understood how the other person felt, but it's very hard to wear someone else's shoes. They go off and rejoin the rest of the regulators. Now let's talk about Claire. Claire, she had a really interesting episode here. And for her, it starts off because she gets a patient, Mrs. Farish. She brings her husband because he's in distress. He can't breathe. He does end up passing away. And, during all this, they realized that his wife had given him mercury pills. And so it just it takes the episode into the point where, at least for Claire, it's just incredibly frustrating. Like, this is the part, like she's happy about being in this time. Like, Claire in this time frame, it just goes hand in hand, except for the fact that people just do not understand proper health care. Even when she does try to give advice to these people, they're just like, oh, well, the king's doctor says that we should give XYZ for this ailment. And even though Claire knows that it's wrong, for them, it's just like, the king's doctor couldn't possibly be wrong. Goody. So this sets off Claire's storyline. And so she does start performing an autopsy on Mr. Farish, which of course she hides. But then Claire, she's watching Marcelly butcher, I think it was a deer. And she's like, hey, Marcelly, you got a minute? And so then she's just like, do you trust me? And then leads her into this room. She's locking the door. She's pulling the curtains. I mean, honestly, that should have been the point. That she should have been like, Claire, she pulls back the sheet and then she shows that she has Mr. Farish. His whole chest is just flayed open. It's just, it's a horror show, right? And so poor Marcelly, I mean, it was like the best reaction. We were laughing so hard at Marcelly's reaction because it's just like, yeah, I mean, you really have to think about it from her point of view as someone from this time. And I mean, of course, like Brianna, she saw him earlier. And of course, for her, it's like, oh, but she knows that you do autopsies. But for Marcelly, she's just like, do I have to say it? Don't make me say it. Don't make me say it. As she's saying all this, you're immediately like, oh man, Leary is about to come into the picture right here. She is about to come into the picture. And sure enough, she's just like, was my mom right? Was she right about you? Oh my God, that whole scene, it was just perfect. Honestly, they give Marcelly some of the greatest scenes. Just in her delivery is just always on point. I love it. I love it. It was just, we couldn't stop laughing. We had to rewind just to hear the scene again, because it's like, wait, what did she say? What did she say? Claire, she's just like, listen, I need help. And I think that you can help me. So that was that. Let's talk about Brianna and Roger. So there's a point where they're out shooting, and Brianna, she's trying to teach Roger how to shoot, and yeah, he's not very good. So then this leads to the conversation of really, what can he do here? Not much. And he doesn't have the respect of her father. So then Brianna's like, all right, so look, I mean, obviously you want to go back. I don't. But I'm glad that they did point out that how are they going to know if their son can even go through the stones? You know, how are they going to know that he can hear it? So they have to wait until he can communicate this. Like, hey, what's this buzzing sound? Yeah, and there was even a scene with Claire and Roger where Claire is telling Roger, like, honestly, I want you guys to go back because these are difficult times. They're very dangerous. And this is not the type of place that I would want my grandson to grow up in. Later on, he finds these drawings that Brianna did of Bonnet. So you know that Bonnet is just this dark cloud that's hanging over them. Speaking of Bonnet, he was finally revealed in this episode. It was like a underground women's fighting ring. So that was interesting. And Mr. Forbes was there as well, or Pippin from Lord of the Rings, Billy Boyd. So if you remember him from last season, he had asked Brianna for a hand in marriage before Lord John Grey saved the day. So yeah, he's at this underground thing, right? And so this whole scene is basically to establish the fact that, number one, Bonnet is in fact alive, doing illegal activities. If he's all buddy-buddy with some of these guys, including Forbes, or at least he's now been introduced to Forbes, with the understanding that Bonnet does illegal activity, then you know that all these gentlemen are just up to no good. There was a man that was there that called out Bonnet for cheating. So Bonnet challenges him to a duel. He ends up getting him. He had cut his leg. The man falls to the ground. He's like, yield, you know. So, listen, you already know that Bonnet is not going to yield. You already know that this man, or you assume that this man is going to die. He doesn't, but they definitely made sure that we understood and remembered that Bonnet is ruthless. And so he maims him. He just cuts him across his face. And it was just this brutal scene. Yeah, I mean, I guess if there was ever a point that you were like, oh, really? How bad is Bonnet again? I don't remember. Yeah, well, you remember now. Probably the most interesting thing out of the scene, and the one thing that really pulls your attention, is the fact that someone is like, hey, how come you didn't just kill him? And so he's like, well, I'm a father now. Obviously, he did not forget what Brianna told him, and that he is probably on his way to stake his claim for his son. So yeah, I mean, it was a powerful episode. There was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff to unpack. Had a really nice balance of all the characters throughout the whole episode, and it was good because now you see the setup for the most part, what you're going to be getting this season, and the direction that everyone's going to be headed in. So yeah, I don't know. I think they're doing pretty good. You know, they dug deep, I think, in the writer's room and really crafting this story. It's only the second episode, so who knows what'll happen for the rest, but I've been pleased. I've been really pleased so far. Probably my favorite scene is definitely between Claire and Marcelly. Hands down, for me, that was the best scene. It was just so funny, and it was just so, I don't know, it was just really well done. Especially when you see like Claire trying to calm Marcelly down and make her understand with not even like Claire is just like very matter-of-factly, like, listen, this is what we got to do. The one scene that I could have done without was definitely Bonnet and the gore of it all. It's not like they totally went overboard, but yeah, I don't know. I probably could have done without that. So I don't know. Let me know down below what was your favorite scene and what was your least favorite scene of the whole episode? So that'll be our question of the day. So you can go ahead and take to the comments and let me know down below. And then if you want to catch up with some of the previous seasons, you can go ahead and check out some of the playlists in the cards above. So thank you so much for watching. Until next time.